and we welcome you to our Thanksgiving special. This is Fan Response. I'm joined here by special guest Isaiah Leung.
What's
It
up,
is
guys?
Wednesday, November 27th, 2019, Thanksgiving Eve. We are going to be talking about some of the biggest news in college football, including the college football playoff rankings and your favorite rivalry week pick'em. We'll also get into a little bit of the NFL, NBA, and our 2-minute warning special. Are you ready, Isaiah?
I am ready as can be, man. Let's
Okay,
do
for those
this.
of you who haven't watched us before, I'm Stephen Wang, former Buckeye alum, graduated in December 2018, and Isaiah Leung is a student at Ohlone College in Fremont.
Big
His
Georgia
main
Bulldogs fan.
yes, his main college team is the Georgia Bulldogs, as we all hate bandwagoners, but he is one. The Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. He's also a big Niners fan and a big Lakers fan.
Yes,
Isaiah,
sir.
talk to me about these college football rankings. As you look at the top seven, especially, these are really the teams that are going to be contending for the national title and for one of the four playoff spots.
Yes, sir.
And the top 25, what is your biggest surprise in these rankings?
My biggest surprise is honestly the team that is right now at number 22, USC. You guys know how much I absolutely hate USC. You guys know how much I hate Clay
Keep
Helton.
Clay Helton.
I think this committee is like purposely trying to infuriate me and piss me off because why on earth does USC deserve to be ranked number 22nd? Like it makes no sense. Okay, you beat a cow team that they were minus their starting quarterback and running back, okay? And then you beat UCLA by 17, but you gave up 35 points. UCLA's defense couldn't stop anybody. They haven't stopped anybody all year. They are like a freaking high school team. That's how pathetic their defense is. USC's losses have been 3 points to BYU, who lost to Toledo, 14 points to a very underwhelming Washington team, who is currently 6-5 and will need to beat Washington State in the Apple Cup on Friday to have a 7-win season. And then you got blown out at home by Oregon. Yes, I know it's Oregon, but dude, still, Oregon lost to Arizona State this weekend. They didn't just lose, they got killed in that game. Jaden Daniels, Arizona State's quarterback, was having a fantastic game. He was torching Oregon, and you lose by 32. You made Oregon's defense look like the 1985 Bears. It was so pathetic. I just don't think USC deserves to be number 22nd over all the other teams that are ranked below them. That's my big surprise.
My biggest surprise, Isaiah Leung, is my Ohio State Buckeyes ranked at number one. This
Wow.
committee has not been kind to the Ohio State Buckeyes in previous years. And I didn't think they would do it, but Ohio State is officially the best team in the nation. How about that? The best damn team in the land. LSU has the better resume, obviously,
Makes me
but
want to
Ohio
vomit
State has looked like the
about
most
state.
dominant team throughout the nation in college football. Give me my Bucks to win the national title this year. Justin
Nope.
Fields, Chase Young, J.K. Dobbins. That team just so complete. Defensively, special teams, running game, passing game, offense, coaching. They've got it all. They're going to take the title this year. And all of you guys, all those talkers over at Old Roll, you're going to eat your old crow. And, oh, by the way, just to infuriate you a little bit more, my prediction is USC is going to go 9-4 and keep Clay Helton.
If they do that, that would be one of the most darkest days of my life. Like last year, I already experienced it when Clay Helton was for sure gone after that 5-7 season, and they somehow, someway brought him back. Like I was so pissed. I like hid in my bedroom and cried. That's how like pissed I was and like saddened over it, man. Because I like USC, man. Like they're a perennial national title contender. They should be at the top each and every year. And right now they are like in the middle. Clay Holton is basically the college football version of Jason Garrett. He's not bad, but he's not great. He's good. He's average. He's mediocre. USC is all about championships. We're not about mediocrity, and it sucks watching what the administrators at USC is doing right now to that team.
By the way, shout out to Anthony Urbejo and Ashwin tuning in. We are live at the Ohlone College studios. Isaiah, I want to get your reaction. How about that Oregon game? One of
Yeah.
your teams, you got 40 teams, so it's really hard to keep up. 1 minute you're an Oregon Ducks fan, the next minute you're an FSU Seminoles fan, but your Oregon Ducks fall to the ASU Sun Devils, another one of your teams. But what is your biggest takeaway from that game? And is there any route for Oregon to possibly bounce back into the playoffs at this point?
No route whatsoever. That Oregon's loss to Arizona State was absolutely horrific. Arizona State coming into that game had lost four straight games, and you lose to a team that they were like underwhelming this entire year, and you made their quarterback look like basically the second coming of Drew Brees. That's how like pathetic it was. 3rd and 16. Are you kidding me? 3rd and 16. Arizona State is backed up at I think they were like 10-yard line, and you allow him to throw an 80-yard bomb for a touchdown. How does that happen? That's absolutely inexcusable. It's unacceptable. It can't happen. Oregon's defense is garbage, and like that Oregon loss to Arizona State, it makes USC losing to Oregon by 32 even worse.
Let's pull up some statistics from that game. I completely agree with you. Listen, I know that Justin Herbert didn't put up his best performance. Obviously, the 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, key in the Arizona State upset. They jump out to a 24-7 lead early in the fourth quarter. You're not going to win a lot of football games like that, but he brought them back. 2 straight touchdowns to bring his team back into the game. If you're asking me, look, I don't care how your quarterback is played and how the game has gone. When you're down 3 points and your offense has put up 14 straight points to bring you back into the game, you've got Arizona State, at best above average to mediocre college football team, pinned at the other side of the 20-yard line, the 13-yard line, 3rd and 16. It's the defense's job to make that stop. And as bad as Herbert played, he gave them a chance to win that game. But this just goes to show you, man, the difference between the good and the elite teams. Elite teams, they know how to get it done. You don't get rewarded for close losses. Listen, I know TCU played Oklahoma competitive this week, but we're not sitting there talking about, TCU almost beat Oklahoma. Yeah. At the end of the day, you got to get it done. That's why Oklahoma's getting punished so hard for the Kansas State loss in which they almost came back. And that's why Oregon is ultimately left out of the playoff discussion, drops 8 spots. By the way, I don't agree with that because I think that, listen, they did lose a horrific game against Arizona State, but if you were to ask me, I do think Oregon is one of the 10 best teams in the nation, just straight up. I think they would beat Minnesota on a neutral field. I think they would beat Baylor. I think they would beat Penn State. So a little bit disrespectful there to not leave them in the top 10. Dropping 8 spots to number 14, that's got to be my second biggest surprise in the rankings for me.
First of all, I just want to say one thing. It's news that you finally say that someone will beat your Minnesota Golden Gophers, because this guy is the most biased Minnesota fan ever, man. So that's news in and of itself.
By the way, I'm a Gophers fan because I was born and raised in the Minneapolis metro area. My mom worked for the university for over a decade, so there's the backstory behind that. But I want to get into our top 6 teams now.
Wait, hold on.
So let's bring it over to that.
Before you continue, I just want to drop another stat about the Oregon ASU game, that 3rd and 16, that makes that loss even worse. Arizona State had a 15% chance of converting that 3rd and 16 from their own 13 or 15-yard line. That's how bad it was, man. 15% chance of converting it, and you let them get it. That's pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the defense really didn't come to play. I want to get your opinion. What is your top 6? Dive into the rankings for me, because right now, as it is, top 6 right here: Ohio State number 1, LSU number 2, Clemson number 3, Georgia number 4, Alabama number 5, Utah number 6. Give me your top 6, Isaiah.
All right, so I got to put my analyst hat on and not be biased towards Georgia. If I was biased, I would say Georgia's number 1, obviously. But here's my top 6. I've got LSU at number 1. This is gonna make me want to puke, man. I got the Ohio State. Look at how hard it is coming out. I got the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 2. I got Georgia at number 3. Clemson at number 4. That's a big surprise to you guys. Alabama at number 5. And Minnesota at number 6.
Okay, for my top 6, I'm going to go with number 1, Ohio State. They've looked like the most complete team. Didn't play their best game against Penn State. 3 fumbles in the 3rd and 4th quarter. 21-0 lead. Really let Penn State get back in that game. But playing as poorly as they did to win a double digits against a top 10 opponent, that is just really impressive to me. I am keeping them at my number one slot. They look like the best team in the nation. Shout out to my Ohio State Buckeyes for holding through. Great game last weekend against Penn State. And I'm so shocked the committee decided to put them number one. LSU number two. I think given their resume right now, you cannot disrespect them and put them past anywhere past number two.
Hmm.
Honestly, I think based on how the committee's been ranking teams, they should be number one, LSU, because the committee is just so heavily resume based. So I think that in the committee's eyes, LSU should be number one. But these are my rankings. I'm giving you my best six teams in the nation. I got LSU at number two. I got Clemson at number three. Georgia number four. They've looked impressive defensively, but hey, if only they had a offense or kept Justin Fields, Isaiah.
Nah, man, Justin Fields. For all of you guys saying like my guy Shree and Sammy Block that have been saying, oh, Georgia should have kept Justin Fields and shipped out Jake Fromm. I'm gonna tell you right now why Justin Fields was not going to be a good fit for Georgia because Kirby Smart wants to run a pro-style, run-heavy offense like Jim Harbaugh originally did at Michigan. You need a guy in Jake Fromm who's going to be a game manager to run that system. Justin Fields doesn't fit that pro-style offense. He's more a better fit for the Ohio State's spread offense that Urban Meyer and Ryan Day is now running.
Okay, fair point with that, Isaiah. I do think Justin Fields is a better college football player, but maybe if you were to put him in a pro-style offense, Fromm could potentially be the better prospect and the better fit for that kind of an offense.
I just want to say that, like, I think if you put Fields in Georgia's offense right now, I think Fields' capabilities would have been limited because like all Kirby Smart wants to do is run the football. He's like Nick Saban with Alabama. It's run the football. That's their bread and butter, and then get into third and manageable. And Jake Fromm completes like a 6-yard, 7-yard pass, and you get a first down. That's what Kirby Smart's offensive philosophy is. And if Justin Fields was going to be the guy to run that, it would be like, okay, he's going to be all right, but his capabilities would just be limited. That's it.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm going to go on with my top six. At number five, I have Oklahoma. Listen, I know their wins have not looked impressive, but I think this is kind of the same way with Ohio State against Penn State specifically. Oklahoma's kind of played like that all year long, where they have let points on the board, and Jalen Hurts getting picked six in the red zone against TCU and still being able to close out that game. Listen, ultimately, this team is closing out games, and we've seen how explosive their offense is and how their defense can come in the clutch and be that bend and not break style defense. I have Oklahoma ahead of Utah right now, but number six, I got to put Utah ahead of Alabama because they have just looked like a mini Ohio State out there in the
You
Pac-12,
just say you're gonna put
blowing
Utah.
out Arizona 42
Oh my
to 7, absolutely dominating everyone in front of their great defense. Tyler Huntley looks legit. Looks like you got something to say about that, Isaiah. What's your opposition?
My thing is my guy right here needs to be drug tested immediately. That's absolutely insane.
Listen,
Are you kidding me? Like,
Alabama without Tua Tagovailoa against Utah on a neutral field. I would love to see that matchup, and I have Utah winning that game.
oh please. Oh, dude, I would have if that happened at neutral field matchup, Alabama would stomp Utah, man. Like Utah, they're okay. But you're playing in a weak Pac-12. That's why they're winning all these games. And you can't. How do you explain them losing to USC, who was without Keaton Slovis in that game? Like I know
Utah had
like,
injuries too, man. College football happens. Anyone can
they
beat
were playing
anyone.
with full capabilities, though. Everybody on their roster played in that game. Like they didn't have any major injuries. Keaton Slovis was knocked out for that game, I think, in like the first minute. And you lost to USC's third string quarterback. That's an inexcusable loss.
Okay, let's dive in to some of the teams outside of the top seven. So
Yes.
obviously, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, Utah, and Oklahoma are your top
Yep.
seven. Those are the teams that are going to have the best chance to advance into the playoffs and win the title. But Isaiah, in your personal opinion, what kind of probability do you give Minnesota and Baylor to advance into the college football playoffs?
Honestly, I give Minnesota
I give them a 30% chance because I really don't see them beating Ohio State. Um, they could keep it. They maybe could keep it competitive, but if they lose to Ohio State, that would be two losses, and two losses is basically you're out in the college football playoff. So I think I would say about 30%. I really don't see them beating Ohio State.
Okay. And for me, I think Baylor is going to absolutely have to dominate their opposition to leapfrog some of these teams like Utah, Georgia, Alabama. They are going to have to play exceptional, impeccable football to leapfrog all those teams according to kind of the committee's history and their history of evaluating teams. I think if Minnesota wins out, which is unlikely, I don't see them
No way.
that seemed it very probable that they would beat in Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. But if they manage to beat Wisconsin and beat Ohio State, I think they should be in. I don't, who knows what the committee is going to do at that point. I think even if they win out, it's like a 50-50 proposition unless they just steamroll their opponents.
Yeah, that loss to Iowa is going to hurt them big time, man. Like, I mean, I was watching that game, and I would say that I never really thought Minnesota had it, like, we're going to win. Like, I never had that fear that they were going to win. I thought it was just, like, Iowa had complete control of that game throughout that entire game. That's what I thought.
Well, you have to remember, Minnesota was missing a key kicker in that game. They
Yeah.
were on the road. This was an Iowa team that had been battle tested against Penn State, Wisconsin, Michigan. They had looked competitive in all three top Big Ten matchups, and they were coming in hungry with nothing to lose in a big time rivalry game against Minnesota, in which they were fresh off of that win against Penn State, that huge win that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
vaulted them into the college football playoff discussion. And I just think that Minnesota came into that game a little bit lackadaisical, and Iowa just had all the momentum from start to finish.
I mean, that's true. I also thought that, like, Minnesota, they were coming off a big win over Penn State, and I feel like they just weren't focused, because they're like, oh, we beat Penn State. Yeah, man, we beat them. Let's go. And then I feel like they just took Iowa lightly.
Okay, let's go into another team that is within the top seven. Everyone has seen them every single year in the college football playoffs. A big brand. Alabama's number 5 right
Ooh,
now.
yes,
You have to
yes.
believe that if they're able to beat Auburn on the road,
Which they
their
won't.
first quality win of the year, they could vault themselves right back into the thick of things. Isaiah, the committee
Yes.
leaving Alabama at number 5. Is Alabama more of a placeholder, or do they have a legitimate chance to fight their way into the college football playoffs?
You know what? They've got great playmakers at wide receiver, running back, tight end, and their offensive line is pretty good. The only issue that I have with them besides quarterback is their defense. Their defense got absolutely torched by LSU. Like, I mean, I kind of get it. Like, we don't really know how good Alabama defense really is because LSU has been basically torching everybody. But Alabama's defense, they gave up 30 something to Ole Miss or whatever it was, and then they gave up, I think, 28 to Mississippi State. I might be wrong on that, but their defense has been giving up like 30 points to weak opponents that they shouldn't be. That's one of my biggest concerns with them. And I can't really judge Alabama until I see how Mac Jones played like against a good team. Like I want to see him this weekend against Auburn, see what he does. If he looks great, then yeah, Alabama's got a great shot of making the college football playoffs. But if he looks bad, then Alabama's not getting in. So it all depends on this Saturday's Iron Bowl, how Mac Jones plays for me.
Okay, so for me, Mac Jones has looked spectacular. In terms of raw talent, I can almost see him surpassing Tua at some point. But I think right now, your sample sizes, which is obviously the Arkansas game where they won 48-7, the
Arkansas is the worst
all
team, though, in college
impressive
football.
Western Carolina 66-3 win, where he looked really good. His throwing motion looked amazing. This kid's got incredible talent, don't get me wrong. I think he's got a lot to prove on the offensive end for Alabama and can make a more competitive case for them. But ultimately, I think Mac Jones is only the offensive part of the team. The defense is not going to get fixed, and the minds are not going to be changed off of just 3 lousy games. And I think without Tua Tagovailoa, the committee ultimately decides that Alabama is indeed not unequivocally better than Oklahoma and Utah should they win out. Remember, chaos could ensue. And as we all know, if it does ensue, Alabama will get in.
Yeah.
But my reaction to this number 5 ranking here for Alabama is that the committee is more so doing that out of respect. They don't want to be seen as Bush League. They don't want to be seen as jumping to conclusions right when Alabama is at their lowest point. They lose their starting quarterback. Defense looks terrible. They're coming off a fresh home loss to LSU. Then Tua goes out and they drop them below the top 5. I think it's just more of a showing of respect more than anything
Yeah, I think it is.
than it is to say, hey, Alabama, you've got your chance here. But let's see if they can prove us wrong here, Isaiah, because if that defense doesn't show off and absolutely clobber Auburn in like a 29-40-0 game, I don't think they have much of a shot to get in. With that being said,
Wait, hold on. Before you continue, just want to tell the world, Bo Nix is going to go off in that game. If you have him in your college fantasy football, start him.
okay, with that being said, let's get into our college football playoff picks. This is rivalry week. We've got
Yes, the
Ohio
best
State,
week of the
Michigan.
year,
We've got
baby.
Minnesota, Wisconsin. For anyone that cares, we got Georgia Tech, Georgia. Hey, maybe the Bulldogs are going to get upset. Then we got the
way.
Iron Bowl, Auburn hosting Alabama. Isaiah, let's get into your first pick. Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Who do you got?
Oh, the good old Egg Bowl. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Listen, Ole Miss is 4-7. Mississippi State is 6-5. Joe Moorhead, their head coach, really needs this win to save his job. And, you know, if you look at the categories, offense, defense, points per game, yards per game, points allowed per game, defensive points allowed per game, they're both like really evenly matched in each category. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to come down to like a turnover late in this game. I got Mississippi State, the home team, winning 33-30.
Okay, for my prediction, I think Ole Miss is kind of a mediocre squad. These are two mediocre squads.
Yeah.
And when it comes to that, these teams, they're not very disciplined at winning on the road. And I think it's going to come down to that. I got Mississippi State showing out Ole Miss in a moderately defensive battle, 27-16.
Before you go, I think the back to my Joe Moorhead point, I think honestly Mississippi State could fire him either way because this is Mississippi State, man. Like Dan Mullen built this team into like an annual 9-10 win team, and now you put Joe Moorhead, who was the offensive coordinator when Penn State like had that great offense, that like the one that beat Ohio State with Saquon Barkley. I don't think Joe Moorhead's that great of a head coach. I just don't. I think his offenses are getting exploited by the great defenses in the SEC, and his leadership skills are absolutely atrocious. If you watch his press conferences, they're like Jim Tom Sulas with the 49ers. I just think that if you're Mississippi State, even if he wins this game, I would cut bait because, dude, you're accepting mediocrity if you don't fire him.
Okay, let's move on to
Yes,
potentially the game of the week. OHIO, Ohio State at Michigan in the big game. Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines have looked impressive in their run so far ever since losing to Penn State.
Yep.
They've won out. They've trounced Notre Dame. They've beaten Iowa. They've beaten some great teams. Who do you have in this game, Isaiah?
This is a game that, like, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, Ohio State's going to destroy Michigan. Ohio State's going to put up 30 points. I'm going to tell you right now that this game, the score will be in the teens. Because if you look at the weather for that game, it's projected to be 35 degrees and snowing for most of that game. So what do you normally do in a snow game? You run the ball a lot. So that's
J.K.
why
Dobbins.
I think that Justin Fields and Shea Patterson, like, they won't really have that much of a factor in this game, like throwing the ball wise. I think that it's going to come down to the Michigan running back, the Ohio State running back. If Michigan's defense can stop the run, if Ohio State's defense can stop the run, it's going to come down to whoever gets that, whoever wins the turnover battle. Because this is exactly what snow games are, like how snow games are won. It's whoever wins the turnover battle wins those games. I think I'm going to go with the upset here.
Wow.
Jim Harbaugh
Let's hear it.
and the Michigan Wolverines will get a late fumble by J.K. Dobbins and beat Ohio State 17-14.
Isaiah going straight for the jugular. We all know he picks Ohio State to lose. every single game because that is my alma mater.
I think Alabama will lose all the time.
By the way, shout out to fellow Buckeye alum from December 2018, Marcus Pereira, tuning in. Marcus, this
What's
one's
up,
for you.
Marcus?
Listen, it's going to be on the road and in Ann Arbor. It's going to be snowing. It's going to be cold out there. It's not going to be a very pretty game. It all comes down to protecting the football for Ohio State, which they weren't able to do against Penn State last week. I believe they will not be able to get away with that against Penn State this week. Michigan is looking great. I think Ohio State plays a conservative style offense here because they know that their guys are better than Michigan guys. You don't have a Justin Fields at Michigan. Shea Patterson might be a halfway Justin Fields or a poor man's Justin Fields.
Yeah,
You don't have J.K. Dobbins. Nico Collins is nice, but he ain't no J.K. Dobbins. And you don't have any Chase Young on your team. Ohio State University takes advantage of a defensive battle. Their line absolutely clobbers Shea Patterson. Michigan might be able to run some trick plays and do some tricky things on offense, but I have my Ohio State Buckeyes coming into the big house and possibly the big game of the week, winning 23-14. Let's put it up in the defensive showdown in the snow. Ohio State stays undefeated. Look, my main concern in this game is Ohio State has the Big Ten East locked up.
Yep.
Bottom line, if they win the Big Ten championship and say they don't lose to Michigan by 30, they're going to the playoffs. So the sense of urgency in this game for Ohio State is not going to be as high as it is for Michigan because Michigan's going to be at home in the big house. Nothing to play for already. Their season's over. This is their Super Bowl, Isaiah.
Yep.
And so I have one last question to ask you about this game.
What?
Is Jim Harbaugh's job on the line in the big game?
It depends how much they lose by. Like, if they lose by like what happened last year, like 20 plus points, then I don't think they're gonna fire Harbaugh because, dude, he's the son, man. He's the son of Michigan. So I think Harbaugh is gonna go to the NFL if he loses by 20 something. But if they lose by what happened like 3 years ago to this day, which was a game that or a play that I absolutely will never forget.
It was
and
a
that
first down,
was
Isaiah. First
that
down by
JT
JT Barrett.
never passed that marker. That was not a first down. But back to the Michigan game, I think if he loses like that, I think he stays because they'll be like, oh, you didn't have your team was inferior to Ohio State, so you know what? And you only lost by what 2-3 points. That's pretty good.
Okay, for me, we have to remember that Michigan was basically like the Indiana of the Big Ten before Jim Harbaugh showed up. It's not easy to win these games out here outright, especially against a team as special as Ohio State. They're just so much better than the Big Ten out there. And, I mean, Urban Meyer and Ryan Day have just made James Franklin look like Harbaugh 2.0. I know they beat Ohio State in 2016, which Michigan was unable to do. But Ohio State's just so much better than the rest of the conference. I don't know if you can even pin Jim Harbaugh being 0-5 against Ohio State against him. This is just the superior football team. I don't think Harbaugh's job is on the line. He's made them so much better than what they were before. He's going to keep his job no matter what in this game, after this game, and probably after next season, and the season after that, and the season after that. He'll probably be remembered as some Michigan coaching legend with how much losing they're used to. All right, let's move on to the Texas rivalry. Texas Tech at Texas. We all know Big 12 offenses, high scoring, high risk, high reward. Who do you have taking this game, and what's your score prediction, Isaiah?
You hit the nail on the head, man. It's going to be a high-scoring shootout because none of these teams play defense. Texas defense is one of the worst in the Big 12. Texas Tech's defense is absolutely garbage, too. Sam Ehlinger, I think Sam Ehlinger will lead Texas on a final drive to win this game. I've got the Longhorns getting a much-needed win to, save their season. And I think Texas wins this one, I would say 50-43. It's going to be a big shootout.
Wow, with a very bold prediction. Isaiah, Sam Ehlinger, by the way, was a guy you were really high on before. I remember when they lost that close game against USC, you were like, oh, man, it was forward progress. It was forward progress in overtime. You thought Ehlinger was going to be as special as Trevor Lawrence is now. The cookie has just absolutely crumbled for Texas.
let me
here on
admit
out.
something on that one. So
Oh, Isaiah's ready to make a confession. All right, let's
I
hear it,
didn't
little
really
brother.
like the reason why I was so salty about that game wasn't because like I love Sam Ellinger. Like Sam Ellinger, he's okay. He's okay. But I would say one of the biggest reasons I was really pissed was because I wanted USC to lose so they would fall to what 1-4 and Clay Helton would get booted out of LA after that one. But that didn't happen and he's still here.
All right,
So,
well, I'm
yeah.
going to move on to my game prediction here. Texas really, really needs this win.
Yes,
I
they
know that
do.
they're already bowl eligible. There is absolutely 0.000% chance that they will get a good bowl game, but this is a good momentum booster for the program in an in-state rivalry. I have Texas taking this one 43-28. I think the offense shows up, defense makes enough stops against a Texas Tech team that just hasn't looked very great ever since Gary Kinsley left them. So Texas 43-28. I want to turn it on to you, Isaiah. Is Tom Herman's job on the line in Texas's final two games, this game and obviously their bowl game?
I don't think so. I think that he's built up good credibility with that program. He led them to like a 10-11 win season last year, and they beat my Georgia Bulldogs. Even though my Georgia Bulldogs clearly didn't try in that game in the Sugar Bowl, I think that was a big program boosting win last year. And I just think they're going to be like, you know what? It's not on Tom Herman's fault. Offense
Yeah,
is
we're not
pretty
Ohio
good.
State, you know.
Yeah, like offense is pretty good. It's the defense that is absolutely garbage, and their Achilles heel. Tom Herman's specialty is offense. Offense is running pretty good right now.
All right, let's move on to the Apple Cup, a game that eliminated your
Yes.
Washington State team from the playoffs last year. They were 10-1 entering the game, and the Washington Huskies were able to take advantage of the snow, grind out a gritty win to clear the spot for possibly Ohio State or Oklahoma to take it. Unfortunately, Ohio State wasn't able to clinch that last playoff spot.
Thank you, Purdue.
But your prediction for the Apple Cup, Isaiah?
Listen, both teams have been underachieving this year. Washington was the team that everybody expected to be in college football playoff contention. Like they brought in Jacob Eason, who is the quarterback that Jake Fromm relieved when he got hurt, and then Eason was supposed to be a major boost for them, but instead it's been the other way around. Eason, he's not been that good. I don't think he's honestly 100% recovered from his injury. Washington's defense is not what it used to be. Their defense was really great during like the last 2-3 years, but it's not that good this year. They just lost to lowly Colorado, which is very unacceptable. I think that I'm gonna go with another bold prediction. I think that Mike Leach and the Washington State Cougars will put up at least 40 points on that defense. I think they win it. I'm gonna say it's gonna be like a fairly wide margin. I'm gonna go Wazoo winning over UW, my guy's dad's alma mater, 41-20.
For me, this is just two mediocre teams I could care less about. It's a coin flip right here, except for my dad went to the University of Washington. So I got to stick to family ties here. I'm going to go with Washington 27-26 in a showdown in Seattle. Give me Washington winning this game by 1 point against Washington State.
Ooh.
Okay,
Wazoo, baby.
let's move on to the showdown in the Sunshine State, Florida State at Florida. Isaiah,
This is an easy.
take it away for
This
us.
is an easy one, man. Florida State's absolutely garbage. They just fired their head coach Willie Taggart like 2 weeks ago. Nobody's even going to their games. They're not dominant, but they're way better than Florida State. Florida will trounce Florida State. I think it's going to be I'm going to go 30-6. Florida State's offense is not good. I think Florida's got one of the better defenses in college football that nobody's talking about. I got Florida 30-6 over FSU.
Florida is one of those teams that has just had the schedule and the power of the SEC
Yeah.
get to them. They have just had the bad luck of the draw and being in a great conference and being in a good division within that conference.
Yep.
Their 2 losses to LSU and Georgia, really nothing to be ashamed of.
They actually played LSU competitive.
A 42-28 game, I was about to say, that was not as widespread as the margin indicates. They played them competitive.
Yeah.
24-17 loss against Georgia. You could make the argument that Florida is one of the 7 to 8 best teams in the nation as far as who they could beat out of these ranked teams. So for me, Florida against a mediocre Florida State team, below average Florida State
mediocre,
team. Garbage Florida State team. Okay, I like it, Isaiah. I think they easily take this one 29-0. Give me Florida just trouncing the Seminoles. Their return to glory has taken forever, and it sure isn't coming this year or next year. Let's move on to the Civil War. Oregon State at Oregon. Obviously a matchup that's been lopsided in recent years. Oregon, I think, has won 9 of the last 10, but we all know upsets happen in college football. They're going to be coming off that huge upset loss that has all but eliminated them from the playoffs against Arizona State. Give me your prediction for that game, Isaiah.
Listen, Jonathan Smith, the former Washington offensive coordinator, has done a fabulous job in returning home to his alma mater and lifting a Beavers team that I think a couple years ago weren't they winless, or they had only 1 win, and now the Beavers right now, as they currently stand, the Oregon State Beavers are 5-6. They have 4 wins in the conference. It's been really remarkable turnaround for Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, but this game is in Eugene. I think Oregon State will be very hungry coming in because they want to get to that bowl game. They just need 1 more win, and it's their final game of the season to get to that bowl game, which would be a great feat for them. But I think Oregon is the more hungrier team because they just lost to Arizona State in a nationally televised game. I think they would be hungry for redemption. I like Oregon State, but I think they're 2-3 years too early. I think Oregon is going to win this game. I would say it's a close game because rivalry games are always close. I think Oregon's going to win this game. I will go 35-24.
Oregon 35-24, Isaiah says.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to keep it nearly as close as that. Listen, Oregon's going to be upset coming off that upset loss against ASU. They're going to come in with everything to prove. They are going to absolutely trounce Oregon State 45-10. Let's move on to another candidate for the game of the week. Alabama at Auburn on the road. The Crimson Tide's first chance to get a quality victory on their season. They have had 0 wins against ranked opponents this year. Isaiah, do they get it done?
Ladies and gentlemen, you might be about to witness history right now. I might pull the trigger and pick Alabama for the first time in 3 years.
Is he about to do it?
Bo Nix, baby. Bo Nix will torch that defense like I told you guys earlier. And Auburn, with their home field advantage, Jordan-Hare is one of the most toughest stadiums to play in because when you are down, it feels when you're down 14 points, it feels like you're down 28. That's how hectic and hostile that environment is. They feed off the fans. Auburn's got one of the best defenses in the country. They're going to shut down Mac Jones. I think that Auburn's going to win this game, and they're going to win it by at least 10 points. That's what I'm going to go with because I think Mac Jones has not faced a defense that is blitz heavy like Auburn, and they're going to make Mac Jones throw the football. I think Mac Jones throws 3 interceptions in this game, and I think Auburn's going to win this game by a score of I would go 28-18.
Okay. I think Alabama wins this game, but I don't think it's going to be enough to turn the committee's decision and put them into the top 4. Like I said, I think them being at number 5 right now is more of the committee's respect to Alabama as a team and respect to Tua to not drop them below the top 5 right when he gets hurt. That'd be kind of a Bush League move.
Yep.
I think Alabama wins this game in a close one, I'll take Alabama 26-23 against Auburn. They win by a field goal. Mac Jones has his breakout moment, but it's not going to be enough to absolve that defense of its blames. Alabama 26-23 in the Iron Bowl. And Isaiah, I'm shocked you didn't pick Alabama because you
way.
seem
I
to
will
love that team.
never
The
pick
team just
Alabama.
continues to
Never.
ruin
Nope.
your Bulldog seasons. All right, let's jump
Hey,
to
before we move on, I just want to say something. If Mac Jones has that breakout game like you predict, we could be in a discussion next season about who is the best second-year quarterback between Mac Jones and Keaton Slovis of USC. Just keep that in mind, guys.
and I think that discussion is going to be very, very up for debate next year.
Yeah.
Both players just show so much promise. I mean, Keaton's doing stuff that USC freshman quarterbacks have never done, including Mark Sanchez, Carson Palmer.
Yep.
I could go on and on and on. He's throwing it accurately on the run. He's leading his team to victory. He's working with what he's got, and he's keeping Clay Helton hired.
Oh man, you're never gonna drop that from me, aren't you?
All right, well, let's move into the battle in Georgia. In Atlanta, Georgia at Georgia Tech.
This is an easy one. Georgia Tech is absolutely garbage this year. I think they only have like 2 wins. I think this is gonna be a opportunity for Georgia to get their offense going in a tune-up for the SEC championship game. I think Georgia's great D will absolutely shut down the triple option that they call it of Georgia Tech, because Georgia's run defense is one of the best. And what do they do in the triple option? Run the ball heavily. That's a recipe for disaster for Georgia Tech. I think Georgia's going to win this game 45-7.
Wow. Okay, Isaiah, not too bold of a call. I think Georgia is clearly the better football team here. Listen, Georgia is really vying for that final playoff spot. They know their playoff lives are on the line every single minute they touch the ball, every single minute they're out on that field. They want it to come down to them and LSU.
Yes.
And you can not give enough credit to Kirby Smart for allowing Georgia to have that moment, that game, where they have the chance to come away with it all. Unfortunately, they can never close it out because Alabama's in the way. For the first year ever in Kirby Smart's successful tenure with the Georgia Bulldogs, Alabama will not be in the way. Look for an extra motivated Georgia to win this game 49-3. I don't think it's close. I think they're looking ahead to LSU, but they're making sure there's zero chance that it stops that from being the prime time matchup and the fight for their season.
How many yards do you think Jake Fromm throws for and touchdown passes in this game?
Well, no offense, Jake Fromm. I think he'll throw for 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 picks. I think they're going to run the ball down the throat of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Let's move on to Wisconsin at Minnesota. This is a huge game right here.
Yep.
Minnesota still got everything in front of them, Isaiah. If they win out, do you see them going to the college football playoffs?
If they win out?
Yes.
Oh, man. Yes, I do. Because they would have won the Big Ten. Plus, they would have beaten Ohio State, Penn State, and Wisconsin. No brainer.
All right. And what potential do you see either of these two teams, Wisconsin or Minnesota, of beating Ohio State in a potential Big Ten championship matchup?
Ooh, oh, man. I think if I have to put my sports analyst cap back on, I'm going to say that I don't give any of them a shot. I would say probably around 30%
Okay.
of beating Ohio State.
I don't think there's any chance either of these teams is going to beat Ohio State. We can sit around and talk about hypotheticals as much as we want. And I know you love your hypotheticals. I love mine. If this happens, if that happens. Listen, Minnesota's not winning out. I do have them winning, however, against Wisconsin in a snowy game at TCF Bank Stadium. Tanner Morgan is just such an impressive player. He's going to lead the Gophers to victory here. All the hype surrounding this game, they're going to be energized at home. It's going to be similar to the Penn State game. I see Minnesota winning this game 29-23. They stop Wisconsin on their last drive. Tanner Morgan does enough for them to win the game. But Ohio State is just going to trounce whoever comes out of the Big Ten West. It'll probably be a 40-17 type game. Isaiah, give me your pick for this Wisconsin at Minnesota game?
First of all, before we started the show, me and Steven didn't even realize that it was going to be snowing in this game. So we had to kind of change our pick a little bit because I predicted it would be like an even more high scoring game. But now that I realize it's going to be snowing, who's got the better running back? Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is going to have a monster day because they're going to just keep feeding and feeding and feeding him the ball because it's snowing, dude. That's what you have to do for a snow game. You just have to run the ball because you don't want to throw the football. If you do throw the football, I mean, it's most likely not going to be end well for you because like the ball's really slippery. So nobody's gonna be throwing the football. It's just gonna be run, and defense, just like I like it. I think that Wisconsin will win this game because they've got the better defense and the better running back. I think Wisconsin wins it in a very low scoring game. Actually, I think it's gonna be. I would say 15-14. I think Wisconsin wins it on a final game-winning field goal.
Always picking against my teams, Isaiah. Whatever, man. I think Minnesota's got a special season brewing here. In 2014, that was the last time they matched up for the Big Ten West, by the way. They let that game slip through their hands. I don't think this time. Minnesota is just so much of a better team than they've been in previous years. PJ Fleck knows how to energize that locker room. He is going to take so much advantage of this opportunity. He's going to hype his team up. They're going to come in at home, and they're going to show Wisconsin what's up on the offensive end. I don't care if it's snowing. I don't care if it's hailing. I don't care if it's raining. Cats and dogs and LSU Tigers. All right, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State, our final pick of the week. Isaiah, take it away here.
So if you look on the records, Oklahoma is obviously the better team. They're 10-1. Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback in this matchup. Oklahoma State's starting quarterback just got lost for injury. I gotta change my pick from what I wrote right here. I got Oklahoma beating Oklahoma State in this game, even though it's in Oklahoma State, which Oklahoma State feeds off that crowd. But I just think the loss of the quarterback is too big for Oklahoma State to come back from. So I think I'm going to – my score prediction, I think that Oklahoma wins this one. I'm going to go 59-40.
59-40, Oklahoma.
But it's not going to – it's going to be like the USC-UCLA game where USC had like a 38-10 lead, and then UCLA just came like crawling back every time. And then USC would score, and then UCLA would score, and it would just be like that.
So the game's not going to be as close as the score indicates.
Nah, man.
For me, I think Oklahoma is going to come in ready and motivated for these final two games. They know they got to win out to have even a chance at the college football playoffs. They've got a lot to prove here. They can't even afford close wins here. I think Oklahoma dominates Oklahoma State in this rivalry game in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I understand they're on the road, but they're the more talented team. Jalen Hurts is just incredible, an incredible offensive talent, a juggernaut. I'll have Oklahoma in this game 42-20.
42-20.
Yes. All right. So this is going to be our last topic of the evening due to time constraints. Let's move on to the NFL real quickly. Isaiah, a lot of topics around the Denver Broncos. Vic Fangio was expected to go in there and completely change the culture and do great things for this team. But now this team is sitting at a terrible record after 20-3 loss against the Bills. They're 3-8. Is Vic Fangio, first of all, is it right to scapegoat Vic Fangio? And second of all, is his job on the line once again?
Man, the first part, I think it would be extremely unfair, and it would be an astronomical mistake if they were to fire Vic Fangio because he was dealt a really bad hand this season. From terrible quarterback play. Listen, they paid Joe Flacco a lot of money. Joe Flacco has shown that, he's way past his prime. He's garbage. He's washed. He should absolutely retire. And then now they're on to Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen, he's okay, but he's not going to be your future franchise starting quarterback. Drew Lock, the guy that they picked up in the second round, he was the guy that they thought he was going to be the future. He's been out with a hand or wrist injury or whatever, so that's knocked him back.
I think you need to give Vic Fangio a pass for this season. And listen, successful teams in the NFL, what they need to be successful is time, patience, and continuity. Let's look at the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers were 10-22 under Kyle Shanahan for the first 2 seasons. Jed York could have easily gotten rid of him, but he chose not to, and he chose to keep Shanahan and ride it out. And that decision has paid off big time, as this 49ers under Shanahan are one of the best teams in the NFL. They're 10-1. They're a lock to go to the playoffs. You just got to do what the 49ers did to be successful if you're the Denver Broncos. As for your second part, I mean, John Elway is really impatient with coaches. I think that right now I would give it 50-50, because there is a rumor leaked by the Denver Post, who is like really into it with the Denver Broncos, that Denver might fire Vic Fangio. So that I think that report has some substance to it.
Okay, so for me, I think this is really simple. It's the first year of coaching for Vic Fangio, and I think the number one thing that you need to do with a head coach is to give them at least 2 seasons with a team.
Yes, sir.
I know it's looked bad. They're 3-8. They're getting blown out by the Bills. They're getting blown out by the Chiefs. They're not looking competitive in a lot of these games. But these are young players here. These are unproven quarterbacks. I mean, really, their only bright spot being Philip Lindsay, the running back, which you have in fantasy.
It's been a terrible mistake drafted.
But they can't rely on just the legs of Philip Lindsay to carry them to wins.
Yep.
It's a young team. Give the coach a little bit more time and control of this team, and we'll see where they go from there. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is you look at some of these scores, like a 16-14 loss against the Bears, 26-24 loss against the Broncos, 15-13 loss against the Colts. Excuse my language here, but some of the losses the Broncos have sustained this season are absolutely bullshit. I mean, there have been some terrible roughing the passer calls that are just so questionable. It's like it makes your jaw drop and just ask, what? So give them more than a season, guys. Come on, that's the best thing you can do with coaches. At least then give them a chance.
Yep. Wait, before we end this though, I really want to talk about like this thing that we had on our 2-minute warning segment, which is will USC fire Clay Helton? And if they do, who's going to replace him? I think USC will definitely fire him because attendance is going down. The Coliseum fits 77,000 people this year. The average attendance for each USC game was 40,000. Absolutely pathetic. The fan base has quit on him. I think USC wants to bring in a big name to re-energize that fan base. And let's not forget recruiting. USC, like when Pete Carroll was there, they always had the number 1 and the number 2 recruiting classes in the country, right? They were always up there. You want to know what their recruiting class rank is like this year and last year?
Sure.
Last year was 65.
Wow.
This year is 77. Clay Helton, I think, needs to go because you need to get that recruiting class back to number 1 and number 2. I think that the guys that I think USC should target to replace him is Urban Meyer because he's a big name. He knows how to win championships. He would definitely re-energize the fan base. Jack Del Rio, my guy right here. I've been pushing for him since last year. I don't know if you guys can see that picture clearly right here. Reason why is because he's a big name. He's an alum. Also, if you hire Del Rio, it would allow you to have Del Rio just come in to fix that defense, which desperately needs fixing, and it would allow you to keep Graham Harrell, the USC offensive coordinator, who has worked wonders with USC quarterback Keaton Slovis, and the last one, James Franklin, because he's a big name.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on about all of your points. I will say 9-4, that's a pretty good finish for USC, and Clay Helton playing the way he does. If I were a betting man, I still think that they're going to let go of Clay Helton.
Yeah.
But they've had a decent season. They've, performed about at expectations, but it's not about that. It's about the future. It's about who you've got on cue. You have Franklin. You have the potential to get Meyer. You have the potential to get all of these top college football coaches with proven winning experience and franchise-changing experience. I'm going to put down that Clay Helton gets canned this year.
And who's your prediction to be the next head coach at USC?
I think James Franklin.
I got Jack Del Rio.
Okay. Last question for you before we wrap up the show. Out of the rivalry games this week, what do you have as your college football game of the week?
Ooh, I'm going to go with Alabama-Auburn, clearly, man.
Yeah.
This game.
Alabama at number 5. They've got a lot to prove. They had no ranked wins so far, and this is a team that we believe is one of the true contenders for a playoff spot. Obviously, Minnesota and Baylor could win, but we don't see them winning out realistically.
Yes, sir.
For me, I'm going to go with Wisconsin at Minnesota because I think just because of the history behind the game, Minnesota has not been a top playoff contender since like World War II, back when there was no playoffs at all. So I'm gonna go with this Minnesota Golden Gophers game just because of the history behind the team. Do I think it'll have any significance within the college football playoff rankings at the end of the day? Not really. But that's gonna do it for our time. This has been Fan Response. I'm Steven
Yeah,
Yang,
we gotta enjoy our pie, man.
and we're gonna enjoy some pumpkin pie.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
All right, happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
Hopefully next time when we come back on, maybe next week, we're gonna have that breaking news to discuss that Clay Helton has been fired at USC. But yeah, man.
I will see you guys next Tuesday. Remember, every Tuesday, 6 p.m. East Time, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. East Time. I am in with Ryan Schreiner every week covering the biggest news in all of American sports.
Hey, and
Peace
don't
out.
forget to watch Buzzer Beaters with your boy Sammy Block
That's
and
right.
Nolan Harmon. Best sports podcast in the biz. Grab your turkey, pumpkin pie, whatever you're gonna eat on Thanksgiving, and sit down and instead of watching football, watch Buzzer Beaters, man. Turkey and Buzzer Beaters, new tradition, y'all. Do it.
OHIO, let's go Bucks.
Let's go. Later.